And welcome back to the Ghost and Friends YouTube channel, joined again by Pack Talks Exos and Mr. NBA Hornboy. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Good.
Doing good.
Good. Ready to get to ball talk, my kind of guys. So, yeah, I mean, obviously there's a ton of opinion across the country on Arch Manning and what really to expect from him. You can see people that believe he's going to be one of the greatest college quarterbacks almost immediately. And you have people on the other shoe who are, they think he's going to melt. It's going to look a lot like the couple of series he got versus Georgia last year when, Kirby Smart kind of gave Texas hell for 4 hours. Going to start with you, NBA Hornboy. When you look at the 2025 offense and you look particularly in the opener against Ohio State, and, knowing what we know so far in camp, what do you kind of expect out of Arch Manning in the opener? And how different do you think our offense looks in 2025 than it did, last year under Quinn, more of the RPO system?
So in the first game, I think just with Arch's experience, especially on the road, because he hasn't started the road game. Mind you, his first road test is going to be in the Horseshoe, not these places to start. I think he's going to have some mistakes, some wrinkles just from being kind of a new starter. I think that our offense this year is going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot more downfield play. As we saw this year, I think Texas, if I'm correct, Texas led the nation in receptions under 5 yards or something like that. It was some crazy stat like that. And I think that with Arch, the offense is going to look very similar to how it did versus ULM or Mississippi State, to where you kind of let him sling it if he can. It's going to be a lot more standard. It's going to be a lot more standard play. I don't see much RPO game. Obviously, with Sark, he likes to have the RPO game a lot. But I think with Arch, it's going to be a lot more. He's going to have a lot more range to do what he wants rather than just like the screens or the checkdowns that Quinn was able to do. I think he'll do good against Ohio State. Obviously, they still have a great defense, even though they lost Jim Knowles. But I still think that through the wrinkles, he's gonna have a good game and overall have a great season.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you there. He's going to have a ton of time to prepare for this. It's going to be, again, like you just said, a pretty new Ohio State defense who still have a couple of the holdovers from the national championship team they had, and a really good defense, obviously. Pac, what do you expect week one, Arch Manning at Ohio State? What do you think maybe the game plan looks like? And talk a little bit just, how you feel the offense. Same question as for Clint, how you feel the offense, differentiates from last year.
So in terms of the game plan versus Ohio State, it's kind of an unknown. You don't really know what you're going to get from Patricia, if he's going to steal from Belichick and run a lot of the cover one quarter stuff that they did, or if he's going to play a little bit more of Tampa 2 from 3 high like Ohio State last year did. So with that one, I'm not really sure. I assume that it's going to be kind of maximizing Arch's strengths. So you're going to see a lot of vertical passing. You're going to see a lot of post routes, a lot of wave concepts. So you're running like a deep over, a dig from one side, and then you're running a post on the other. I think you'll see a decent amount of that. And then I think you'll see a little bit more quick game than what you saw in the past. You might see a little bit less RPO just because based on last year, you didn't see as much of Arch like really taking advantage of RPOs, whether it's just because he's not used to throwing with touch or if he's throwing a lot of one balls. So I think you could see a little bit less RPO, more quick game. Also, it changes how you play the pass as a defense. So I think like it's a good thing though if they can vertically exploit teams. If Arch can hit the post, it takes teams out of split safety. It takes them out of 2 high, which then changes the way that you can play RPOs and like run fits and everything. So to me, I think it's going to be a lot like you just let Arch rip it. You be aggressive against Ohio State. You trust the game plan. And then that kind of ties into what the difference is going to be between a Quinn Ewers offense and what an Arch Manning one is. An Arch Manning one, you're going to see a little bit more vertical passing. You're going to be a bit more aggressive. You're going to run more full field concepts than you might with Quinn, where it was a lot of we'll go 1 to check down or 1-2 check down, where you're just trying to get the ball out and give space to running backs or receivers out on screens and whatnot.
Really well said there. You don't know what wrinkles Matt Patricia throws at Texas. I would assume he throws a ton of different looks, really tries to confuse, an inexperienced at this level quarterback. So, good point on that. For me, talking about this offense, and anything that I'm saying here, I unfortunately with our fan base, we have to handicap this with, I'm not talking down on Quinn Ewers. But I will say that we have not seen anything close, in my opinion, to what Steve Sarkisian really wants to do on the offensive side of the football. He does want to challenge teams vertically. He wants to push the ball downfield at times, but of course he wants to be able to run the football to set those things up. And so for me, I think Arch personally fits. I know a lot of people said that Quinn was perfect in Sark's RPO system. I think our offense looks a little bit more like the offenses that Sark had at Alabama. Like you said, a little more quick game, less of the true RPO action. But as far as throughout the year, there are a lot of people, I think Arch is front runner in Heisman odds. Do you agree with that? Do you think that I'm gonna let whoever wants to take this first take it, but do you agree with that? Do you think that by year's end, Arch is in that conversation, or where are you at with that right now? Because I mean that's for a guy who's only played a couple of true ball games, that is a pretty big ask.
Let me just answer Peyton's question really quick. That's like exactly what I mean. Where I think part of like the nice part about Quinn was you didn't risk as many turnovers because he wasn't looking to go downfield where you have things like being laid over the middle or you're throwing into double coverage or one of those things that creates turnovers. But as a result of that, you get longer drives, so you execute more, you have a little bit more consistency, whereas with Arch, there's a little bit more boom or bust. So I think that's like really well said.
Thanks for addressing that for one. But I definitely agree that, it's not necessarily going to be boom or bust all the time because I think they're still going to, move the football pretty efficiently. But I definitely think they take more shots, and therefore, you throw the ball deep a few more times, your completion percentage drops. Your efficiency drops just a little bit. So, I mean, I'm all about it, though. I want to see the field challenged. I want to see defenses having to defend every inch of grass out there on the field. And I think you kind of mentioned that, Pack, with the full field concepts. But, go ahead on as far as what you think his maturation is like throughout the season, and does he actually have a shot at, ending up in New York?
I think he does have a shot to end up in New York. I think as the season goes on, you might see like kind of that it becomes less boom or bust where he's consistently hitting checkdowns, where he's getting to a fourth or fifth read on the field. I think you'll see him just kind of get more comfortable. And I think the decision-making just gets better as this season goes on, where you might see a pick or two against Ohio State, but by against Georgia, you might feel really confident in terms of what he's seeing. And I think that's really important because you're going to see a lot of different concepts. So Arch won't be as fooled as much. Which you could really see in that first game against Georgia. On those like 7 snaps he played, you could tell that he wasn't really confident in what he was looking at. That's not going to be as much of a problem when we play them this year, in my opinion, just because you're seeing so many snaps and you're seeing so many coverages. So to me, that's like the biggest thing that you're going to see from maturation is just you're going to figure out what you're looking at more. You're going to have a better understanding and you're going to make better decisions because of it.
Well said. Same question for you, Brother Clint.
I think it can end up in New York. I have my Heisman winner being Kate Klubnik, but I definitely think he can make a finalist for the Heisman. I agree with Pack a lot of what he said. I think at the first part of the season, you're going to see him struggle a bit, as anybody does whenever they have an experience and they're not going to have that. I guess they're not going to have that experience to be able to know like what to do and what not to do in certain situations. But I think overall, throughout the season, he's gonna get a lot better. He's gonna get a lot smarter with his decision making, and I think that he's gonna be a lot more in flow with his receivers too. Because that's another thing that you have to understand is that, especially with how different the speed of the ball is from Quinn to Arch, That's a big change for the receivers, and they've had all camp to do it. So I think over the season, and as the chemistry gets better, you're going to see him a lot better. And I think that he can end up in New York, but I wouldn't say he's a Heisman winner this season. I think next year he could, but
I mean, you got to think about the fact that we have, some new faces on the offensive line, and that probably, maybe not, maybe it doesn't affect his play. But as far as pass blocking, I think that, what Quinn had the last couple of years is probably going to be a little bit better of a unit than what Arch gets this year. And here I am already making excuses for the guy. But no, I genuinely, like you're both saying, I mean, throughout the year, especially come, November 15th when we go to Athens, Georgia, like you said, that's a whole year of reps almost. A completely different situation than when we got Georgia last year and he's in the spur of the moment because we can't move the football. Whole different situation there. And so, I mean, that's partially, you guys know I've said this many times, but like I'm most concerned really just about the Florida game because they do have a lot of continuity from last year on the defensive side of the ball, and it's still so early in Arch's experience as QB1 here, and so of course Ohio State won't be easy either, but they do have a lot of turnover there, so that's why I have the thinking that I do, and this is one point that I don't think anybody everybody just thinks Texas success is going to fall squarely on the shoulders of Arch Manning. The run game, naturally, it will get better because people have to be aware of Arch Manning. You have to be aware of him taking off. I don't think we're going to have a lot of designed quarterback, looks for Arch. You go back and see what Sark has done in his past with quarterbacks, and it's just not really what he's preferring to do. Pac, talk to me. What do you think Arch Manning's run game looks like? Is it mostly broken plays, scramble situations? If it were you, how many times would you design Arch Manning in the run game per game?
So I think you will see it mostly just be scrambles and broken plays. I took a look at it like a few weeks ago where I just wanted to see against Mississippi State how many how many of his 6 rushes were designed versus scrambles. And I think all but one was a scramble, and the one was just a QB sneak down at the 1 yard line. So I do think it's mostly broken plays, scrambles. But if it were me, I'm designing 1 or 2, maybe 3 a game where I'm just going zone read, power read, some form of QB keeper, just because of what it does to the backside edge when you're playing Texas. If you run the quarterback, what you do with that backside edge is you force them to play like a surf technique, and it makes the run game a lot easier where that backside end can't play it with like a racer technique. He can't chase after the back because he has to respect the QB keep. So it makes it way easier to play the run. So it makes it way harder to play the run. Sorry. So I think it's like a really important thing for us that Arch at least runs the ball at least once or twice. You just want to see it so that way a defense has to prepare for it. So that way it changes the way you game plan. Whereas this was like an issue with Quinn where you didn't have to respect Quinn's legs. So you could race that backside edge, and you saw a lot of chase downs, especially when teams would slant and get vertical movement and force cutbacks. It ends up turning into a vice. So just having Arch's legs is a huge thing, and it's something that I think they should do. I'm not sure how much they'll actually do, though.
Really well said, man. When you combine the element of Arch's deep ball prowess, I think he's better than his predecessor there. I'm not knocking out. I just think Quinn's going to immediately improve the deep ball category for Texas. And like you just said, it eliminates, a defender in the run game on most snaps. And all of a sudden, you combine people worried about Texas going over the top, also with Archie using his legs backside of plays or on broken plays. You're talking about spies that potentially, he's fully capable of playing backyard football. We saw him have to run from bigger and better athletes at Newman High School all the time. We saw that, in 2A ball. Brother Clint, is Arch Manning going to be the best player on this offense by year's end? Do you think this team is going, he's a talk last year. It seemed like by the year's end, it was Matthew Golden. Everybody was just not saying that he was the MVP of the offense. He was a huge part of it. But do you think Arch is grabbing, obviously by namesake alone, he probably will be. But do you think play warrants everybody, all Texas fans to essentially give this man, the offensive MVP, I guess, if you will?
I definitely think so. I think last year with the situation that we had, in the first 2 games, you saw Quinn be really good, and you thought that he was going to end up being that type of player by season's end. Once he got the injuries and had to deal with all what he dealt with, you saw that quickly fade away. I think Arch, barring any injuries, obviously, I think that he has the playmaking ability. I think that he has the improvising ability, and I think that he just has an overall X factor about him that will make him that will I wouldn't say by far because we have a lot of athletes. We have Ryan Wingo, as Peyton just said, Jack injuries. We have a lot of great guys that are going to contribute. But I think Arch overall is going to be the offensive MVP just because of all the skills he has and just what we've seen from him in these few games that we've seen him. I mean, granted it's UTSA, but him being able to break off a 70-yard rushing touchdown, his deep ball ability that we've seen, and just him being able to move in and out of the pocket. I think all those traits that he has they kind of scream offensive MVP, and I think that he'll end up being our biggest guy on offense at the end of the year.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely agree with you. In modern football, on a good offense, most times your best player, your offensive MVP will be a quarterback. Of course, their offense is built around really, really strong running games. And you look at Ohio State, who has a Jeremiah Smith, who's clearly the best weapon they have on the offensive side of the ball. For me, man, it's a matter of quarterback. What do? Distribute the ball to playmakers, preferably in space. And, I just think we have so many different playmakers, guys that will contribute on this offense, guys that Sark is going to carve out different roles for, as he's done in the past, to where, I don't think any one guy is going to have to carry the lion's share of, the work. I think the wide receiving, the stats will look pretty comparable for a few guys. Of course, one or two here or there will jump out, but I expect Jack injuries to be a big part of it, as well as Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore. There's several names, and then obviously the backfield. We're going to see a lot of faces there. All right, let's talk fast forward. We're playing into the future now. Let's answer Peyton's question first. Pack, I would feel that you probably know the most about Julian Sayin at this point. What do you have to say about him?
So, I think some of the arm talent, arm strength stuff is completely overblown. I think it's average to mediocre arm talent. But what I think the reason why I don't think it matters as much for a guy like him is I think he's a really good processor, and I think he throws with really good anticipation and touch, like Ryan Day, where more recently they've shifted to more full field reads. I think he plays well in that system. I think he's going to fit what they want to do. I'm not necessarily concerned with some of the arm talent stuff, some of the arm strength stuff. I just don't think it's high level, but I think he fits what they want to do. And I think all in all, from just a quarterback standpoint, I do think he's likely an upgrade from Will Howard outside of the playoffs version of Will Howard, because if you look at him from week 1 versus Akron to that Michigan game, it wasn't great. You know what I mean? It wasn't great tape. And I think he's going to be an upgrade on that. I'm not sure if he's an upgrade on what they got from Will Howard in the playoff, because that was some really good football he played then.
I'd agree with you there, man. Of course, a very much improved running game, and the playoffs there helps out a little bit. But, if you looked at Will Howard throughout the course of the season, he kind of looked like the guy we thought he would be, to be honest. We saw him at Kansas State for several years, so just never a guy that I thought would be a difference maker, even when surrounded by uber amount of talent. Credit to Will Howard for proving me wrong there and having a big college football playoffs and being a part of what eliminated Texas. Julian, I think, is going to be really dang good as the season goes. Obviously, another guy that's going to benefit from tremendous reps and tremendous talent around him as their offensive line figures their things out. Schedule shapes up pretty well for him to be ahead in a lot of games. They should be able to run the football, by mid to late part of this year, again, as that offensive line gets going. But as far as that first game, man, there's a lot of other defenses I would rather face than having to see Texas. Pack will tell you, these guys will tell you it's not going to be the most complicated or confusing defense, but it's going to be really, really tough to beat, especially that pass rush. Not envious he has to see that. Not saying he can't win the game, though. Let's see here. Another saying comment. Barely beating Lincoln, whatever his name is worse than Howard. I don't think he's worse than Howard, man. You're talking about Howard, who played a lot of college football, and then Julian Sand, who's just getting his feet wet, if you will. But that's just one man's opinion. All right, Arch Manning, looking forward, where do you predict he ends up on Texas's all-time quarterback list once his time in Austin's said and done, which, of course, will not just be after this year. He's playing at least 2. Hornboy? Pack? Who wants to make the claim?
I mean, I think he could be a range of anywhere between 1 and 3. In all honesty, I think obviously getting above Vince Young, you're gonna have to do quite a bit. I think obviously you have to win a national championship. You probably have to win a Heisman too to do that. Shoot, I mean, Colt McCoy is not just like he wasn't just some scrub either. I mean, he had like 10,000 career passing yards, and it was like I think he was 40 and something as a starter. He had like single digit losses. I think he's gonna be better than Quinn, obviously. So I think his floor honestly is 3. Realistically, though, I could see him being 2. I think just the thought of someone overriding Vince Young at this point right now, it's kind of, I don't know. It's just something I can't really see happening. But obviously, if he does those things, wins a natty, wins a Heisman, I think you have to put him above him. But that's just my opinion.
Let me ask you this before I go to Pack. If Colt would have beaten Alabama, Colt stays healthy, Texas beats Alabama, 2009 national championship. In your opinion, would Colt have leapfrogged Vince Young into the top spot of quarterbacks all time? Okay, I definitely agree wholeheartedly.
I think it's just because of the longevity of like how good he was. For Vince Young, I mean, for the 2003 season, you saw Chance Mockala having to come in to kind of clean up some of what Vince Young did at points. Colt never really had that. Granted, he never had really a true competition for quarterback, but I think with how consistent Colt was throughout his whole career and just the accolades that he put up and what he was able to do year after year, I mean, shoot, you're like 10 seconds away from going to 2 straight national championships, 2008, 2009. So I think Colt would be number 1, even though Vince beat that USC team that was stacked. I just think what Colt did overall, he would be number 1.
No, I fully agree with you, man. When you look at all the passing accolades and the different numbers, at one point was the most winning as college quarterback of all time by games won, as you just mentioned, had the most accurate completion percentage in any college season at one point. I mean, he did some incredible things there, especially in 2008. That season was a lot of fun. I think Colt would have clearly been number 1 because, as you said, I mean, you won 40-something games, and Young, what's 27-2 as a starter at Texas, and won a national championship, had a very magical season. But I mean, Colt, when you tie in the body of work, it's very difficult for me to sit there and say where where Arch ends up falling in that list. So, Pack, I'm going to let you make your prediction first.
I think I'll say 2. I think you do need you either need 2 national titles or a national title and a Heisman to pass Vince. And I don't think I want to predict either one of those with like absolute confidence. So I think I go 2. I think just getting the 1 national title probably puts you above Colt. And then I don't know. I think there's like a certain like memory that you have with Vince Young, and just like there's a certain level of like aura about him just because he beat that USC team that I think is kind of hard to surpass even with 1 national title. So I'll go with 2. Although I could see 3 pretty easily too.
I feel like the safe bet is 2 or 3. He's going to have an opportunity most likely these next 2 years to play deep into the college football playoff. And if he does, if we can figure, honestly, if as long as we have the offensive line situation figured out, 2026, has to make up to be a really, really special year as far as putting up gaudy numbers. I mean, there would be a lot of talent returning on that offensive side of the football. And so as long as this offensive line unit works out the way we're hoping that they do, a Heisman, I could definitely see, obviously by name alone, it feels like people just want to lump him into the conversation, of course. So I don't feel like his play would have to be anything absolutely crazy just to have him in the hunt. And then again, Texas is probably going to have a really good defense these next 2 years. Always helps out. Should have the ball a lot. For myself, I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm gonna have to go 3. I just can't lock in 2, even though he has a great chance, in my opinion, to get there. Um, Case McCoy, that's a solid. Yeah, I think he might already be higher than Case, and that's not a dig at Case, man. Just the lore. The lore has him up there. But when you look at Arch and his abilities, the offense is going to be good. People doubt. People don't believe Arch is ready. The circle fold, whatever that. But Texas is going to be around. They have a really, really good defense. We won a lot of games the last couple of years, not exactly lighting it up offensively. Even though we did have our moments, there were stretches. But for now, I'm going to have to go 3. I mean, yeah, Heisman, a Natty. That's the only way to get to 1. Yeah, a great chance to get to 2, man. You just win a Heisman or a Natty, and I feel like, by default, you slip by Colt, right? I mean, is that wrong? He wins a lot of games. He wins the Heisman. He's probably winning some games to go along with it. But again, he's probably only going to have half the time at Burn Orange that Colt had. So you could argue forever about this. Evan, I'm surprised I didn't see you in there on that conversation today talking about who falls flat on their face. You could be very special, Arch. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about. I want to be as confident as you, Richard. I really do. 2 would be special. I'll take 1 of each, man, and just roll with it. Here we go. Arch is 7 feet tall, kills men by the hundreds, and period consume the English with fireball from his eyes and bolts of lightning from his arse. Man, John Patterson is in preseason form. I love that. Actually, midseason form, rather. That's another point. You can't really fault Colt for the no natty. I mean, you really can't. We dropped 1 game in 2008. I don't know if anybody remembers early in that game, but Quan Coffey went down via injury. Jordan Shipley drops a deep post that he normally hauls in. And then it got silly from there. But I don't know. It's tough. Not wrong. Heisman or Natty. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Y'all agree? Either or, slips past Colt. I mean, he's going to play half the amount of games, though. That's the thing. The body of work probably is nowhere near the same.
For me, yeah. National title or Heisman bumps him up for me. Just because those are kind of seen above body of work. I feel like when we remember all-time greats, you go national title winners and then Heisman winners more than you go how many passing yards someone had or how many passing touchdowns they have.
Yeah, I think if Arch is able to do either of those things and half the games probably that Colt played, I think he definitely slips. He definitely gets past Colt on that. But yeah, obviously that's yet to be seen. So I'm not going to make any predictions on that.
I feel like we're all low key, pretty dang confident in the guy. We just don't want to. We don't want to be those Texas fans that are sticking their neck out and screaming about how he's going to be a Heisman and a super special guy for these 2 years. Even though I don't know, I'm pretty confident, man. All right, we're gonna get off Texas for just a few minutes. Go north of the Red River. Oklahoma, John Mateer, do y'all care at all about the Venmo crap? Is it relevant to you? You think it's worth being looked into by the NCAA? Obviously, there's tons of hot takes going around about Johnny Mateer right now.
No, I don't care at all. I think it's a non-story. Did it 3 years ago. I just can't I don't care at all personally.
I'm the same with him. It's the fact that it's 3 years ago. It was 2022. I mean, I don't know why you would really punish a guy for something he did 3 years ago, in all honesty. I just hope he won that bet, that he picked USC and not UCLA. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think that, as much as I would love to play Michael Hawkins again, I don't think he should really be punished for it.
I mean, I don't know who really actually started it, if it was Texas fans or if it was somebody else. I don't think it was. But of course, I'm only seeing Texas fans screaming hey, we didn't do this. I think it's funny. I think it's definitely worth talking about, but it's not relevant to his. It shouldn't be relevant to his future in college football. It shouldn't be brought up in the way that it's being brought up. I think it's absolutely hilarious considering what Jim Schlossnagle went through last year with Texas A&M and the Venmo stuff. Like, if it's public knowledge, I mean, it's fair game to look that up, right? And so obviously he learned a lesson about Venmo and maybe even private transactions in the future. But I don't care. I don't care at all. I know that there are other athletes that are wagering on sports or coaches that are wagering on sports. A ton of people that do it and not in a with malicious intent or to to screw someone over, to create a real storm. I don't think that's it. Jaden Daniels, I mean, that's a name that I didn't expect to get brought up, but yeah, he was incredible, man. Really fun to watch there. It seems like if LSU, they had their usual toughness on the defensive side of the ball and nastiness in that front seven, I mean, that team had the offense that was capable of pulling off a lot more than 8 regular season wins. Let's see anymore. Sorry. Is DKR ever going to get grass? Rumor is this is the last year of the turf, man. I've been waiting on finding a new practice field location, and once that was resolved, from what I've heard, you gentlemen tell me if I'm wrong, but I've heard this is the last year on turf. Y'all know anything about that?
Yeah, I thought we were going to grass like either next year or the year after, like it was coming at some point. That's kind of my impression.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to grass next year. I think this is the last year with turf.
Yeah, I'm sure hoping so, man, because I'm tired of honestly, I just think it's ugly, being real with you. I don't like it. I don't like that we're going to Ohio State and they've got it. The last time we went up there, they had the real grass and sick field. But yeah, also shocked, no players from Pack tonight. We'll get some stuff. What do you want him to draw up,
Funny
Evan?
story. I had one written down.
Go ahead, Pack.
I actually had something drawn up and I erased it right before we got on because I didn't want it to be distracting. But it was a fun conversation I was having with a friend about how you play a certain concept and different ways you could kind of go about it.
Always fun, man. We're going to have a whole segment here soon just talking whiteboard with Pack. Let him draw up some stuff, talk about maybe how he would defend, an Ohio State, a Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, those guys. Evan, you got any questions about your Bulldogs for Pack or Hornboy? And what do you think, man? I mean, I know you're going to be a little biased in your prediction, but I've locked in officially Georgia at 9-3. What do you guys think about that? Am I crazy? Think the Dogs are better? But right there, they're a little worse.
I mean, I'm a little bit biased because I spend most of my time when I'm watching tape or this, but most people may not. I study defenses. That's kind of I operate primarily in the Saban world. So now that's primarily Kirby Smart, Pete Golding although he's kind of a blend between Saban and Aranda, and then Dan Lanning. So I've been watching a ton of Georgia. I know most of their stuff. I know most of their installs, how that all works. So I always have a natural bias towards them and their defense. So for me, I have them going 11-1 just because I trust the defense. I trust that they're going to be able to run the ball, and I think they're going to be a little bit more disciplined. I think they're going to be able to tackle better, and then offensively, I think they did a good job with their wide receiver core. I do think it's a downgrade at the quarterback position, but you also get the QB run back in there. You're probably not dropping the most passes in the FBS, so that certainly helps. So I'm higher on them than you are, but I also have a pretty strong bias towards them.
I think they're going to be good. I mean, Georgia's always good. If they lose a game, it's never going to be in a manner like they beat us. I don't believe, not under Kirby Smart. Now that Nick Saban's gone, but what do you think, Hornboy? You buy in the Dogs? Kirby continuing the train?
My market prediction is actually in between both of y'all. I got them 10-2. I think really the 3 losable games that they have on their schedule. I used to think Georgia Tech, but after doing more research, I think that they should beat Georgia Tech, especially with them being in the Mercedes-Benz. I don't really see a problem there. I think it's Alabama, Florida, and Texas. I have them losing to Texas and Florida right now. So I think they'll be good. I think just offensively, even though they've gotten a lot of good wide receivers, I mean, they got Zachariah Branch, they got Noah Thomas. They got some good additions to their offense this year. I just think I don't really like Gunnar Stockton as a quarterback, to be completely honest. I don't think that he's necessarily someone that's really going to elevate your team. I think, in all honesty, he probably is going to hold them back a little bit. And that defense will be good, and it's going to be what gets them to those 10 wins. I think they'll make the playoffs. I just don't really see them improving from last year, and I see them regressing a bit.
I mean, it's even a Georgia regressing as a team that can probably still compete, for a national title in most years. Again, have a ton of respect for the program and everything. I just think between Ole Miss, Florida, Texas, Bama, that they slipped up a couple times. Again, wouldn't be the first time Georgia's proved me wrong. That's why I had to call the dogs last year on this very channel. But I love that, Pack. You have your little bit of bias towards Georgia. That's going to be a really, really fun game by the time Texas gets over there, man, because they do have some youth on their defense. And they're going to have, like we were talking about with Arch, they're going to have the full season of reps in that Kirby Smart defense. And hoping, that your Georgia, sorry, I almost said your Georgia Bulldogs. I'm not going to do that to you, though, man. It's fine. I know you're a big Glenn Schumann fan, big fan of Kirby Smart, and for damn good reasons, man. If you're studying defense in college football, those are some of the elite names. The Saban tree is not a bad tree to study at all. So, all right, guys, anything else, chat, that y'all want us to bring up? You guys have any other SEC topics or just college football topics in general that we missed on or that y'all would like to address?
I can answer Richard's question. I think Bama is going to be really good. I like the roster on both sides. I think they're really good in the trenches on both sides. I'm personally a believer in Ty Simpson. I think he's going to do what Kalen DeBoer quarterbacks need to do. So I think he fits really well, a lot better than Jalen Milroe did. And then defensively, I think they're really good everywhere. I really like their linebackers with Justin Jefferson and Deontay Lawson. I like their secondary with Sabb and Hubbard and Dominique Jackson and all those guys. For me, my biggest question about them is, what did they play on the back end? Last year, you saw a lot of cover one and you saw a lot of 3-high into Tampa concepts. I just want to see if they're going to be a little bit more diverse, just give themselves more of a toolbox to work from. Because I felt like at times they were a little bit too simplistic. But I think Bama is going to be really good. And then answering Evan's question, I have Georgia losing to Alabama.
See, and that's the thing, man, is I just can't pick Georgia in that game right there. Like, I get why you have that. I think Alabama's going to be a pretty good bit better, and they have their numbers. So Pack and I both have this undefeated streak that the Georgia. What is it, Pat or Evan? Is it 34, 35 games? It's something pretty silly, man. I don't I think it's that much. Maybe not. Rayola prediction, guys, anything?
I don't really know what Pac's opinion on him is. I'm not really the biggest fan of him. I watched him a lot last year, and the one game that really stood out to me, and I get it was early in the season and he was just a freshman, but when they played Illinois and they went to overtime, seeing the amount of effort that he gave in that overtime, it was bad. He gave very little effort. The moment he got touched, he went down. I think he had like 2 or 3 straight sacks, and he just made no effort to escape the pocket, makes no effort really on his throws. I think he makes a lot of careless plays. I think the overall like raw talent he has is there. I just don't know if he's like super football smart, and I don't really know what other way to say it. I see him taking them maybe 8-4, but I don't really see much from his college career overall.
What do you think, Pac?
I like Rayola a lot. I have more of a preference towards guys that are like super smart, good processors. I like game managers over athletes. And Rayola does a really good job of that. There's like a bunch of times on tape where you can see him click through reads and get to a backside dig off of a 3-step plus a hitch. And that's like some really high level stuff from a freshman. To me, a lot of Nebraska's issues last year were like more related to their offensive line and their wide receiver room. And I think they did a good job addressing those. They obviously added Dane Key from Kentucky, who I think is going to be super helpful for them. So I'm a bit higher than on Rayola than like I think most people are. So, like, again, I like guys that are more game manager like than guys who are going to play backyard football.
I'm with you on Rayla. I'm a fan. I also think Nebraska has a pretty favorable schedule. I actually have them going 6-0 until they travel to Minnesota on a short week. I've got them losing to PJ Fleck and that boat rower. But I'm a fan of the guy. I know that there's a lot of antics and things that he does that probably drive some people. I know all the big sports social media accounts love to use those things for clicks. But I mean, he's a dude that's just playing a game he loves. I don't love all the Pat Mahomes mess, but I do like Nebraska football a lot. I'm a fan of college football a little bit more when Nebraska is better and relevant. And so maybe it's just me inside really hoping, but I have Nebraska actually at 9-3 again, starting 6-0. Then kind of not really flailing late, but schedule gets a lot more difficult. I do have them beating Michigan at home early in the year, though, as Bryce Underwood kind of finds his footing. Time will tell on that, though. All right, sorry, guys, if I've missed any more comments. So we have Vandy has a target on them. I don't know if Vandy's ever going to have a target on them, Richard. I understand why you would ask that, though, just because of some of the comments. But I think at the end of the day, you're not going to have a lot of teams that have a Georgia or an A&M or an Oklahoma, LSU rolling up on their schedule. And then just a little bit in the back of their mind, they're looking at the next week ahead, and it's Vanderbilt. I don't think you're going to have anything like that. They're just going to treat that game as handle our business, move on to the next one, in my opinion. But what do you guys think? Did Vandy do enough to draw a target?
I don't think it's going to be a Vandy issue. I think Pavia probably puts a target on his back, him individually. I think defensive players are really going to want to kind of tone him down and humble him, for lack of a better term. Obviously, that's a player-by-player basis on different teams, but I think Pavia is just – that's all he's really doing is just drawing a target on his back. I like the confidence. I like the kid. I like how he plays and the heart that he plays with. But I think obviously just that it's going to draw some attention from some players, obviously, but I don't know how much it is, but not Vandy itself.
Oh, well, NBA homeboy, can you address the rumor that you're afraid of Kodak and the sticks? We talked about this last week.
I'm not afraid of him. I'm undefeated versus him. I just don't want to play it right now. So I'll play you when I play you.
There you go. I don't think that, and it's a great question, Richard. Thank you, man. I don't think that, if anything, is Diego, I guess. Pac, do you think that's, is he going to have a target on his back, or do people just see something like that, kind of shrug it off because there's a little bit bigger and better ops to worry about in the SEC?
Yeah, like it's Vandy, like to a certain extent, you're just never going to be like too worried about Vandy. I think the one team that'll take that game a little bit more seriously is Alabama, just because of what happened last year. But outside of that, it's kind of life in the SEC where every opponent you treat as like a big deal. But I don't know anyone that's like circling the Vandy game on their calendar or like making that their must-win game of the year.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I mean, I think Diego's a pretty great quarterback for Vanderbilt, obviously. I mean, there's better in the SEC, no doubt. But I mean, to me, like when I think about Vanderbilt, I don't even think about Diego first. Like Eli Stowers is a legit threat at tight end. Like that's a guy that gave Texas hell last year and obviously did the same thing to Alabama in their win over the Crimson Tide. Vandy's Vandy, man. Respect the program, like Clark Lee a lot. Shout out to the Door Report, my friend Will Byram. I hope Vanderbilt finds a way to make a bowl game again. But to you guys, what's their ceiling? For me, I'm going to say 7-5, and I would be honestly surprised if they hit it.
I don't see them making a bowl, to be completely honest. Yeah. I think last year
the ceiling's.
Last year they kind of had lightning in a bottle. I think that just kind of ran with it for a little bit. And I think that they got pretty lucky in a lot of situations. I don't see that continuing this year. I think because a lot of those big games they won last year, they're going to be playing on the road, i.e. Bama. I think they'll still do better than their per usual 2-10, 3-9 season. But I just can't realistically, when going through their schedule, give them 6 wins. I can't do it. Probably like 5-7, honestly.
Yeah, you got to be pretty generous. I mean, you're picking them to win some games they shouldn't. What do you say, Pac?
think 6 or 7 is the ceiling. I think 4 is probably where it ends up.
I mean, you can see it, and it's not even hating on Vanderbilt. It's just I think it's last year a couple things went well for them. Like you said, Clint. They went right. They caught Bama, lightning in a bottle there with them. They did have a shot. They almost knocked off Missouri. Right before they beat Bama. So I'm not going to sit there and say like they can't beat a Missouri team. I think that I don't think Missouri is really built to run away from too many teams. They want to play some decent defense and win some games, but I just don't think that I just can't see it. I mean, I feel like 7 is a pretty generous, especially after you two guys, it's pretty generous ceiling. Bowl eligibility might just call that the ceiling for the guys. And again, I'm with y'all. I don't know if they get there. One more team I want to ask about in the SEC is Tennessee. I bring them up because today I asked a question on Twitter. Most likely team, or no, who is the one team that everybody feels most confident in that they fall on their face essentially in the 2025 season? Well, there's a lot of A&M, a lot of Texas, a lot of Oklahoma, Miami, yada yada. But I want to talk about Tennessee in particular because Pat's talked about Josh Heupel a little bit. Give me a ceiling and floor for Tennessee. You did go in depth a little bit about your affinity for a Heupel offense and respect for that run game and how he works it. But what do you think that looks like, knowing what you know about them, and how do you think that quarterback situation plays out?
I think their ceiling's 10-2. I'm not sure I see a world where they beat Georgia or Alabama. I think the Georgia game in particular, they're not only out-talented, but they're like completely out-schemed offensively. I think it's about as bad of a matchup as you can get. The floor, I think, is like 7-5. Like the line right now for that Syracuse game is Tennessee minus 14.5. I think I would really like the cover from Syracuse there. I think like anywhere, I think they're going to go 8-4. But I think best case 10-2, worst case 7-5. And then I'm not going to say like I'm a huge fan of their quarterback situation. Grabbing a guy from the Sun Belt who threw, I think it was like double-digit interceptions, wasn't super accurate. That's like a real concern to me going into the SEC and playing in a system, especially from like a pass game concept, which is really, really simple. And now having 4 or 5 years of tape for defensive coordinators to kind of look at and figure out, I think that's a real issue. I think you could see that number kind of increase a little bit. I think they'll always be able to run the ball against teams that are not Georgia, Alabama, those type of teams. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball on OU either. So I think I'd go 8-4. I'm not like super high on them, but I don't think 8-4 is like falling on their face just because of everything that's happened this offseason for them.
And I think they would tell you that immediately. They would tell you their expectations are not what they were a couple of seasons ago or even last year. So I don't think Tennessee is going to be bad by any means. I think they'll still play pretty good defense. But yeah, that offense and quarterback situation, offensive line, it's not going to be, what Heupel wants it to look like in 2025. Hornboy, answer this one for us. Richard asks, lots of stadiums that are wild to play at. You guys' thoughts on the toughest stadium in regard to the article about Kyle Field being the most hostile place to play?
I mean, I don't think I can really give this an honest answer just because the only two competitive environments I really could say are DKR and Kyle Field. Texas fans may not like me saying this, but I think Kyle Field clears DKR. I went for the A&M LSU game this past year, and the environment there and just the noise, the effect it had on the game, it was probably the most impactful environment I've ever been in my life. And I think if I'm just going to talk between those two schools, I think Kyle Field definitely has a more impactful, definitely has more impact on the game, and definitely is a tougher environment to play in than I think DKR is. So I'm not going to really go like talking about Death Valley or anything because I've never been to those. So I'm not going to go into that really.
Any comments on this, Pack?
I think Bryant Denny, the Hedges over at Georgia, and then I think Death Valley would be my top 3. I can't remember the last time someone went into Death Valley at night and won. a game. It was Texas 2 years ago, but outside of that, nothing comes to mind. And then obviously with the Hedges, that's like 5 years. The last time someone beat them was South Carolina, I want to say, in
Yep.
before COVID. So decent bit of time. So I think those would be my top three.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I still, again, when you look at Death Valley at night and the record at what they do, I like that a lot. Having LSU up there. My second one just got dropped, Mr. Evan. He knows ball, but Jordan Hare to me is a very underrated venue. Auburn needs to be good, of course. That does help it. But you're talking about just from a one game, pure game day experience, showing up and pure hostility. I think that Auburn falls, up there with or belongs up there with the elite in that category. I love Jordan Hare at night. I think it's a fantastic venue. They do it right, especially when the eagle comes down for War Eagle and stuff. I think the bird's name is War Eagle, so forgive me for that. But cool moment for three. If I had to pick one, I'm not going to sit here and say that Horn Boy's wrong. I didn't want to address it, but I mean, you're right. Kyle Field is a more hostile, more ruckus environment than DKR. Like it's okay to admit that out loud. I think I've called DKR the library on a lot of occasions in my life, primarily in the 2010s. But I will say that Chris Delcani and company have done a fantastic job, improving the game day experience and really incorporating the crowd. And it stinks because sometimes I feel like Texas is a kind of a prove it to me crowd, which I've said before. They kind of want to sit there and see that they're watching quality, and when they do, they react. And of course, that's not everybody. And if you're in my section, I'm strongly encouraging you not to do that. I'm literally the guy yelling at other people to be louder. But no, I agree with you. I don't think Kyle Field is the most hostile to play, and I simply say that. And I know it's not really fair, kind of contradicting myself because I'm just talking about a one game scale where we go in and it's compared to the most other hostile. Like Kyle Field's going to be just as loud as anywhere, but I've just been at Kyle Field so many times and seen the Aggies lose. It's really hard for me to call it hostile. I mean, I've been to at least one Aggie game every year for the last 15 years, and they definitely have a losing record in my time there. So it's really it's hard for me to say it's the most hostile. But yeah, it's more hostile than mine, and it's a pretty elite place to watch a college football game. Kyle Field might be the nicest overall. I hate to say that, but it is a bit of a palace, man. They did it right. First Aggie win in Death Valley since 1994. What do y'all think? Yay or nay?
Nay.
Yeah, no.
Yay. I'm on that train. Bart, revealing some of my picks that I'm going to be dropping here for your schedule, but I have y'all winning that game. First time in 3 decades. Sheesh. Went to South Carolina, Georgia, and Athens. Had time of life. Tailgating pregame is out of this world. I will say this: I want to get to Athens for tailgating because I know they do it right, man. LSU is a lot of fun. The Grove is a lot of fun, even with the changes that they've made to it. Oxford is a blast. This is the goal. The goal is to have us three just hitting up all of the SEC stadiums. So if y'all want to get on the sponsorship, it's not coming from me, man. I wish. Swamp's pretty cool too. Where's Florida fall in there for y'all? The Swamp. It's a little outdated. It needs to be needs some renovations, but it's still pretty damn loud in there.
I'm actually going to be going to that Texas versus Florida game this year, so I'll be able to experience it. But I think just by my impressions of it, it can get really loud. It can get pretty hostile. I think you have to have a good Florida team. I don't think when Florida has been down these past years, it's been really much of a factor at all in the game. So I think if you have a good Florida team, it's one of the top in the nation. But most other times, maybe not. I have to experience it myself.
Yeah, I want to go too, man. I'm excited. I'm supposed to be there, so hoping it all works out. Trying to get us. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Private jet, all the boys to old Gainesville. Bring the golf clubs though. I'm not going to Florida without some clubs. Clint, you golf at all?
Yeah, I like to think I'm decent. My swing looks horrendous though, so But yeah,
You've come to the right place. You've come to the right place. We'll get you right by Florida, man. We got a couple weeks, or what, a little over a month. We'll get you right. But hey, guys, I want to say real quick, man, thanks a lot for being here the last couple of weeks. Since we got started back, comments have been fun. Y'all have kind of extended the show, and we've built off y'all. So just want to say thank you to thank you guys. Please like the video if you don't mind. If you haven't subbed yet, please do that. It's cost you nothing. It takes very, very little time. Just need a legit YouTube account. All you guys on Twitter, thanks for watching too. We see the comments and everything. Yeah, I mean, as a city, Gainesville is not anything to write home about, especially in comparison to some of these other SEC towns. You know, I like Athens, I like Oxford more, obviously College Station, even Austin, of course. St. Augustine, okay. I mean, I trust you, man. I'm really honestly trying to go to Sawgrass, and I thought that you were going to pay for it, Richard, and just send me and the boys to a little TPC Sawgrass. But another day, man. We'll get out there. We need a big old Ghost and Friends golf meetup, golf tournament. I've been trying to work on it. I'm hoping it can be done. Trying to collab with an Aggie or two and get a big Lone Star Showdown golf tournament of some kind. So if you guys have any interest in that, y'all let me know, because that's kind of the only thing holding me back from really going at it. Is I don't know how much interest it would reciprocate. But all right, fellas, I'm gonna quit rambling. Anything else y'all got? Good. Everybody's good. Chat good. Thank y'all for being here. Like the video if you would, man. Appreciate y'all a lot. Thanks again. We'll be back tomorrow night announcing 2 new members of the Ghost and Friends team in the morning, and one of them will be on tomorrow night. Again, like the video, tell a friend to tell a friend.